What do successful sellers consistently get right?
Number one thing that I have seen over the years from so many different brands, ones that have failed, ones that have scaled all the way up to even nine figures, there is one consistent thing with them.
My Amazon guy, you scaled sales and you led massive portfolios. What systems or processes were key to your success in that?
I think the biggest aspect is putting people first, always. Putting your employees and putting your people first. Leadership at the end of the day, we're always consistently saying that is top down. I just talked about investing in businesses. That comes down to people. I think people are the biggest investment that anyone can put into their business ever.
When is the right time for a seller to hire an agency like My Amazon guy?
I think anytime is the right time. That's might be a little biased coming from me, right? I've had my own brands.
What's something that brands don't understand about the Amazon ecosystem?
I think a lot of brands.
From building brands in his own consulting firm to leading a 40-person pod, managing nine-figure revenue, Noah Wickham didn't just play the Amazon game, he reprogrammed it. You want to know how? Stick around. Welcome to the show, Noah.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
So you've worked with over 600 brands. What do successful sellers consistently get right?
Number one thing that I have seen over the years from so many different brands, ones that have failed, ones that have scaled all the way up to even nine figures, there is one consistent thing with them, and is that they are driven by someone who is passionate and willing to invest in things that are going to net them a return. The amount of times that I work with different brands and I talk to different brands who are they have that drive. They want to get to that next level. They want to get to six figures, seven figures, eight figures. But then you start talking to them and you ask, okay, so how much are you wanting to spend on advertising? How much are you wanting to,
A dollar.
invest? Yeah, how much are you wanting to invest in like an expert to actually get you there? So often than not, somebody says, well, we're not, as long as the numbers are there, but we got to see some results first. And that's not how the world works, right? Like, that's not true entrepreneurship. That's not true understanding and brand or business building. You have to take a risk every now and then, right? And you have to go with that gut reaction. And sure, data helps make those choices. When it comes down to working with specific companies, working with specific softwares, new advertising platforms, who knows? But at the end of the day, you have to be willing to make that investment in, not only your business and your brand, but yourself when it comes down to it from a monetary standpoint and just a time aspect as well.
So at My Amazon guy, you scaled sales and you led massive portfolios. What systems or processes were key to your success in that?
I think the biggest aspect is putting people first. Always putting your employees and putting your people first. Leadership at the end of the day, we're always consistently saying that is top down, right? And that is, I think, the biggest thing. Willingness to, I just talked about investing in businesses. That comes down to people. I think people are the biggest investment that anyone can put into their business ever. And that just is from the simple fact of if you are willing to invest in your people and willing to really show and teach people and show them how to lead other people and get them to multiply themselves, it's an ever expanding thing, right? A big thing that we have as a core value is multiply yourself for that sole purpose of, one plus one equals three at the end of the day. And so it's a very big thing in my opinion of people is the best and biggest investment any business can ever make. But choosing the right people is where I think a lot of people screw up. Just the smooth talker at the end of the day is not always the person who's really going to get the job done.
What's your approach to team structure and culture?
I'm a very, again, I think the same thing. I'm a very people first culture type thing. Culture is always top down within a business. So, if you can't get your direct reports to live the culture, if you're not going to live the culture yourself that you're trying to push onto your employees and onto your people, you're never going to be able to really move past that at the end of the day. And you're never actually going to get that culture that you actually want because you have to, live that culture. A big thing within our company, for instance, in the last year and a half or so, we have wanted to push a very big culture of health and fitness. We're a remote company. Everyone sits at a desk, 8 hours plus a day. And so it was something that we really thought of and thought, this is how we need to get people to be, invest in the company, invest in them is health and fitness. And so before we even started pushing it to the entire organization, trying to get the organization involved, we took a look at our executive team and realized our executive team had a couple of people that were overweight, a couple of people who never went to the gym, type thing, myself included. I ended up last year setting a goal and I lost roughly 35 pounds last year.
Oh,
And,
congratulations.
that was type thing where that's purposeful, right? Because you can't, the biggest thing, you can never ask someone, expect someone to do something you aren't willing to do yourself as a leader. And that's the biggest thing with culture, especially, is that no one's going to buy into something that you're selling if you don't buy it yourself. And that goes for, I think, business in general, but definitely with the aspect of people within your organization as well.
So, when is the right time for a seller to hire an agency like my Amazon guy?
I think anytime is the right time. That's might be a little biased coming from me, right? I've had my own brands. I've worked with hundreds of other brands. I've seen consulted on brands. I've consulted on, companies that are doing nine figures in revenue a year plus. Um, the biggest thing I'll say is that most brands could use some form of agency touch. Doesn't matter, in my opinion, if you have a in-house team of experts, quote unquote. There's always something you can do, and it's usually more cost effective in that capacity, even if it's a short-term touch. One thing that we have is, we don't require every single brand or every business that we work with to sign a contract. We have a bunch of one-off services that we offer. We offer audits. We offer, single listing optimizations. We offer teaching courses. The purpose behind that is not because it, is good business to drive a little additional revenue, which it is, but it's more so because it allows anyone who is in any capacity to work with us and learn from what we are doing, which is a very big thing we always want to push. So, realistically, any size, we work with people, like I said, who are just starting out and they don't want to learn Amazon, and that's fine. And we'll just do everything for them. And then, we work with other people who they're already at eight figures in revenue a year on Amazon. It's like, that's awesome. Let's get you to nine, and a lot of that just comes down to really building out the brand, helping build out the proper people, even within that brand as well.
So, what do you do if a brand owner is really resistant to delegation or expert advice? How do you handle that?
So if somebody is resistant to it, you can't change someone's opinion on that at the end of the day, right? You can show them data, you can show them case studies, you can show them analysis. At the end of the day, it circles back to what I'm saying, investment, right? Are people willing to make an investment in their brand? Are they willing to make an investment in themselves? I look at working with an agency not as a cost addition or even a profit saver. It is an investment at the end of the day. You are investing in the future potential of your brand, even in the short term of working at the agency. The worst case scenario in most cases is that the agency doesn't grow sales in the way that they thought they would, right? And then now for the future what they did in the short period that they were working with them as to what's better. But would you have been able to do all of that and test all of that same exact area if you had just had your in-house team doing exactly what you normally do? Not necessarily. And so, no matter what, it's an investment into the future. Data is everything when it comes down to making business-led decisions. And I think that's a big part of it is, did it work or did it not work? A, B, and testing is just, what you have to do constantly.
Well, I think you're right about that because as a tech guy myself, I run into things all the time that I can do faster than other people, but then I run into things in my running my business that I realize I need an expert for this. Like advertising is one. We tried we have an e-commerce store that we launched ourselves. It's just shirts and hats, things of that nature, and they're real sassy and kind of irreverent. And we do okay. But I said, the reason we're not really going crazy is because we've been advertised. We need to advertise.
Yeah.
How are people supposed to find us if we don't advertise? And then my wife's like, well, I don't know about advertising. I don't know about this. And I know a little, she says, I know a little bit about it, but maybe not enough. And so she tried, and it was just a miserable failure. We did not do well with that ad at all. And so we hired somebody. And the thing I noticed that was really interesting, you talk about data. I'm a data guy, obviously, as a tech guy, especially as a CTO. The data drives my decisions. And so I'm looking at this and I'm like, all right, well, the way that the ad console is set up looks exactly the same as how we set up our ad. The targeting is the same. The way the budget's spread out is the same. But what was really different was the ad creative. Used some of the same photos we used, just used them in a slightly different, more strategic way. Some of the terminology on the landing page that we sent them to slightly changed. Like not nothing, honestly, let's just say if the way it was like 90% and they got it to 100%. And so it just kind of shows you that, all right, you might be good enough to get it almost all the way there. But the difference was the first ad, zero conversions, zero. The second ad, we made so much money. And I said, see, not only did we make back the money we spent on the advertising, we made back the money we spent on the expert, but we even made back the money we spent on the last advertising, and we're still making more money. And why? What was the difference? Somebody who knew what they were doing led the whole thing. And so I guess it comes down to, like you said, it's always about people, 100%, but it's about having that right person do the job. It's one of the things I teach my tech executives. Why'd you hire this person? Well, I hired them because they're an expert in this. Well, then why are you doing their job? You're not the expert in that. And so it's a thing I've learned over the years. There's things I'm good at, and there's things other people should do for me. You've coached sellers one-to-one. You've hosted Q&As. What are the biggest fears that you hear?
I think exactly what you're kind of talking about actually is the idea that people fear just not being successful and not being able to get to a area where they can even actually hire an expert, right? It's a big thing of at the end of the day, expert advice is not always cheap, unfortunately. And a lot of times people fear putting all this time and effort into something and putting all this time and effort into a brand, a product, something they're passionate about, and then it just doesn't go anywhere. And that can happen. And my biggest advice I talk to sellers about all the time is the aspect of you have to know when to call it quits. The thing that happens so frequently with a lot of sellers is that they just keep investing more and more and more because they are so gung ho on a product and they have this essentially, sunken cost fallacy, right? Where they consistently are just putting more money in, they're trying to get the product to work, they're buying inventory, and it never really scales, it never really goes anywhere. It does just enough to where it makes them be like, maybe I should just keep doing this. But realistically, what they should probably do is stop funneling money into it and just go to the next. You know, what is that Ariana Grande song? Thank you next or whatever. it's
Boy,
it's exactly that. People put a
we've
lot of
all
investment time into it, and
Yeah, we've all seen on Shark Tank, for instance, is what immediately come to mind. And they'll be like asking all these questions, and then the person's, how much of your money have you invested? Well, I started out by investing 100,000, and then I got to this point and I put in another 50,000, and then I put another 75,000 over here, and after they're all done, they invested like $750,000 into this business, and now they have no money left. And they'll literally say, I have to make this work now because I have no more savings, my house is mortgaged. And then invariably, most of the sharks will be like, this is a terrible, uninvestable idea. And you say to yourself, poor person, like you wasted $750,000 on a terrible, uninvestable idea, and you didn't know enough when to, get out of. I mean, there's that saying, right? Fish are cut bait. They didn't know when to cut the bait. And I mean, I agree with you. We have this conversation all the time, and we've actually come up with some KPIs that help us decide when to move on from something. So, and I got the idea from, believe it or not, Walgreens. What Walgreens does is they look um, at their average profit per transaction,
Mhm.
and when that number hits a certain number, they open another store in that city. And I find it really interesting because essentially they're trying to balance out the average profit per store to a certain number, and they feel like if it's too high, they have room to open a second store and then a third store and a fourth store. So what I did was reverse engineer that and go the other way. And I said, okay, if these numbers don't hit after X number of amount of time, then it's time to move on from that idea. It's not working and we can't keep investing money in it. And it's interesting because number one, it gives me a less emotional outlook on the outcome of this said idea. And when it comes time to get rid of, cut it and throw it away, it's not emotional at all. Whereas before I was like, oh, I worked so hard on this and I created all this creative content for it. And then I'm throwing it away. Now I should do a little bit more, just a little bit more. But the data doesn't lie. It is what it is. And there's just times when it's time to move on, right?
There is. At the end of, sometimes you just got, cut it. What's the age-old saying, close only matters with horseshoes and hand grenades, right?
Yes.
And that's it. It's so true. There are some things that it just doesn't matter if you're this close to getting it, you might never get there, right? And you really
Right.
have to know when is the time to double down and when is the time to, walk out of the casino.
So you've worked in almost every part of e-commerce. What
hmm
function do you think is the most overlooked?
Function. Ooh. I think the most overlooked is people. Uh, it seems odd, but I think looking at data for like customer segmentation, super left field answer, I feel, but I have a specific reason for it. The reason is that I talk to a lot of different brands. I've looked at a lot of different brands, and one key thing stands out consistently with people who are having issues with scale. And it's that they get to this point where they're getting a lot of sales, their brand is doing well, and they have this idea in their head of who their customer is and who their, ICP is. And you start to dig into the data, you dig into the keywords, you start to dig into the audience segmentation, and you start to realize a lot of brand owners don't know who their customer is and don't know what their actual ICP is. They've been essentially targeting a ICP adjacent. And so I think audience targeting and segmentation is such an overlooked thing because a lot of times brand owners and people who, own a product or sell a product, they think about that product from their point of view of they are using the product in this way, and so therefore it is supposed to be used this way. I have worked with brands where somebody comes in and says, this is the purpose of my product. I want to sell my product to do this thing. We look into data, and all of the people who are buying the product are not using it for the intended purpose. And it's so hard for people to wrap their head around being like, no, this is the purpose of the product, right? No, I mean, a great example, stress ball. A lot of people are going to use it as a stress ball. Some people might use it for playing catch or throwing something
Right.
off a wall or sticky. Your audience customer segmentation, the data behind that is truly what people need to pay attention to because sometimes you go in to sell a, product for one intended purpose, and a lot of times people don't want to use your product for what you envision the product should be used for. The people who are really successful with their products are those that are willing to overcome that ego and that pride around what their product is meant to be used for and sell into what people want to use their product for.
Well, and you have to, and it's important because you have to be able to speak to the correct customer. You have to be able to use the right language. I mean, it's one of the reasons why, honestly, um, let's say you're building an online course. It's one of the reasons why it's so popular these days to sell the initial really cheap and do the course live. Because then you hear questions, you hear the terminology that the people that are in the course are using. And so when you actually go to sell the pre-recorded course, you can tailor your sales page to those words and it just speaks to the right people. I could give you an example. We had a business years back that we called it the Small Business Boot Camp, and we were aiming it at entrepreneurs and small business owners. And we were not doing well with it at first. And we came to find out that when we would distribute like information about it one place, those people would be like, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm not a small business owner. And then when you distribute another place, they'd be like, I'm a small business owner, I'm not an entrepreneur. And so you want to know what fixed it? It's a really weird thing. Literally took the small business and we kept the graphic, we put a red line through small business, and we put entrepreneurs in its place, just hand wrote it in like it was a correction. And when we would advertise in the places where there were entrepreneurs, we'd use that. And when we'd advertise in another place, we'd use the other. And because we were speaking now to the right people at the right time, suddenly we saw traction. It's really weird. Today, I feel like with the amount of information people have at their fingertips, it's very, very hard to you can't, it's not even hard, it's impossible. You can't avoid speaking directly their language. You have to know how to do that. I mean, I'm telling you, but you know this. I
No,
mean, so like,
absolutely.
what's something that brands don't understand about the Amazon ecosystem?
I think a lot of brands don't understand that honestly on Amazon, when you launch on Amazon, uh, your product being a amazing product matters pretty much as your actual branding does. The branding is something that I think a lot of people try and launch with like really good branding. I'm a big brand advocate, right? I keep the book Building a Story Brand on on my desk at all times because of that. I'm a huge brand advocate, but on Amazon in particular, unless you get to a certain threshold, people don't care about your brand. They care about your product and they care about price more than anything. You can have the best product in the world, you can have the best brand in the world. Nobody's going to care unless your price matches it, essentially. You have to be able to show your unique differentiation. You have to be able to show why it is someone's willing to pay the price for the product they are. There are tons of Chinese sellers out there in this day and age. There are tons of low volume or high volume, low cost products and competitors, and it is very difficult to scale for a lot of people. But if you have a product that has unique differentiation, is well priced, you can build a brand around that product. But it all starts with the product.
So, what's the strangest or most niche product you've ever seen go viral on Amazon?
Dude, I could go down a rabbit hole with this one. You have no idea. I've seen a lot of weird products. I have, so not just seen, I have worked with a lot of weird products. Weirdest things, I mean, I've worked with a seller who's, doing over seven figures a year and he sells fart spray. That's all he sells. He sells fart spray. I've worked with sellers who sell 50-gallon drums of lube before. I've worked with sellers who sell 50-gallon drums of oil, in fact. I think the weirdest one is there was somebody, not weirdest, but another one like similar to the fart spray. They also sold a poop knife. Um, That's probably the funniest one, but they did amazing. They were doing $5, $6 million a year on Amazon, and that was their only product. It was just something unique that they were selling that, wasn't out there, and they had good branding, good marketing around it, and it's funny, right? And that's the thing that I always like telling people because people think they have to be like really unique in what they're doing and what they're selling. You don't. You don't have to be all that unique as long as you have good positioning and your product works and fits into the market where it needs to.
All right. So you get a billboard in Times Square, just one for 24 hours. What are you going to put on it?
I could go a lot of ways with this. And I've thought about it a little bit, right? I could go a little ego route. I could be like, you know what, let's throw our company logo up there, try and get some sales volume, right? Get my face up there, get some extra attraction. Uh, I think I'll go a different route. 24 hours. I'd like to just have a billboard in Times Square that just says "Be kind."
I like it.
Because I think that it's something that in this day and age, too many people are forgetting, compassion and kindness with each other. Take a moment, just be nice to the person next to you. You have no idea. Maybe they deserve the niceness. Maybe they don't. Maybe they're the worst person you've ever met. You don't know though, right? That's the big thing. So, be kind to those around you is I think what I would probably put there.
I really like that. I think that that's necessary because it kind of reminds me of what popped into my head strangely is, as a podcaster, I get a lot of these guys contacting me telling me they'll promote my podcast for me and get me thousands and thousands of downloads. And it's so hilarious to me because I kept saying to them, it's fake, it's fake, it's fake, it's fake. So one time this guy tells me, no, 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 you can test my system. It's totally for real. And told him, I predicted to him what was going to happen, that you're going to give me a ton of downloads. And then as soon as I tell you I don't want to hire you, all the downloads will stop, which of course in the real world makes zero sense. I mean, you guys at my Amazon guy wouldn't really have a job if that was the case, because if you attract somebody to a brand and then you stop doing that and they stop buying the brand, well, what the other your client could do that. They're expecting they're expecting you to find the people who continue to buy the product. Well, sure
Exactly.
enough, he get me like 50,000 downloads over 2 days and then it just dried up. And it made me think of that because I always tell these people, you're you're selling like this dream to people, but you're using fake means to get, over the hump. And so in
Yeah.
the end, aren't you just disappointing people? You're not really helping people. It's interesting to me. So what is a skill or habit outside of business that makes you a better operator?
Ooh, a skill or habit outside of business that makes me a
And
better.
by the way, I have you beat on the book thing. I have that same book, but I also got a Kindle copy of it so that I can have it with me always. And that would, well, seriously, like I'll be sitting like at intermission at a Golden Knights game, and I'll have an idea and I'll go to that book. Okay, how can I say this? Like it's a great book. So I'm glad you brought it up. But anyway, I'm sorry I interrupted you.
Oh no, absolutely. It's a skill or habit. I don't know if I would really consider it a skill, so I guess I'll consider it a habit. Um, a habit that I have outside of like business that I kind of just employ in my regular life is essentially just consistently trying to plan everything out to quite the extent. Not in the sense that I'm like such a type A and everything needs to go according to plan. I just like to have big picture all the time. I like to know like what am I going to do on X day in a general sense, right? And I think that's a big thing, but I'm able to pivot, right? And that's the big thing. So if I, plan on one day being like, oh yeah, I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to go, hiking, I'm going to go whatever, right? But then I don't know, it's raining and so I can't go for a run or something. I'm like, oh, okay, that's fine. I'll still do this. Now I have an extra hour free and I can spend that time doing whatever I want, right? Big picture thinking and being able to kind of pivot. I guess pivot is more so the habit there
Mhm.
alongside it. And I think that makes me successful outside or in both personal life and, business life, right? In the sense that, you gotta roll with the punches, I think is the best thing.
You couldn't have given me a better lead in. It's been hitting me this whole interview. You're really tied to Amazon with what you're doing. What happens if Amazon goes out of business?
Well, that's the big thing. We're we recently have
I mean,
been
I know
hit.
that's a big what if, but
Yeah, I mean, what if we've thought of that, right? And we've thought of that, and a big aspect of what we're kind of doing now is we've pivoted a lot. We're not just kind of just Amazon anymore. We're very direct consumer based, so we're working with a lot of direct consumer brands, Shopify, Google advertising, Meta, and that's the big thing is, you know, I always have this saying and that I consistently like to push out there, and that is essentially to hope for the best, plan for the worst. And that's a big thing you
excellent.
should always be doing, right? Is plan. but be ready to pivot whenever necessary. You should always be trying to do, go for the gold, but look, at the end of the day, you twist your ankle or something and you get silver, and that's okay, as long as you had a plan to get that silver.
No, I like that answer. It just kept hitting me through the interview. And I mean, the name of the company has Amazon in it, but interesting stuff. So you've gone from solo founder to managing 150 million in revenue, building high performing teams. So let me ask you, what's one brutal truth about leadership in e-commerce that no one warned you about until it nearly breaks you?
A brutal truth about leadership in e-commerce, huh?
Yep.
Uh, I think the biggest one is nobody warns you about the difficulty of controlling a and managing a company at scale, such as ours, when it comes down to the amount of people in different locations. Remote work is huge now. We are huge on it. We have employees in 14 different countries. That's a lot of different countries. That's a lot of different cultures. People have different cultures. They have different things. It's very common in the e-commerce world. Our company is huge. It has scaled so much. You have to be able to wear a lot of different hats, talk to people in a lot of different ways. We have an internal thing we use called culture index. It allows us to kind of get essentially, I guess, a vibe check on somebody. What is someone's personality essentially, and how do they like to be worked with? And that has helped immensely because when I first got into the e-commerce space, and even when I had my own consultancy all the way up to now with my Amazon guy, that is the thing that has been always just so difficult because, it's one thing to sit down with someone across the table, have a conversation. You can kind of read each other a little bit better. It's much harder when it's through a computer and when you are just, trying to understand and maybe somebody is distracted. They're looking at their second monitor. Maybe they're, somebody who doesn't work well with getting confrontation. Who knows? There's a million things, and that's always been the hardest. But overcoming that is also one of the best things to feel, especially when you have a direct report or someone that you felt like you couldn't connect with beforehand, and even in a virtual landscape, remote work, and everything, you start to get and feel that true connection.
Totally makes sense. Well, this has been an excellent conversation. Why don't you let the listeners know how they can reach you if they want to get in touch?
Yeah, absolutely. So anybody who is listening, if you want to reach out directly to me, you can do so. Just check me on LinkedIn. Just Noah Wickham on LinkedIn. If you want to reach out to my Amazon guy, we do all sorts of services, as I've mentioned throughout this podcast. So just check us out on myamazonguy.com. And more than happy to talk to anyone and even do coaching calls and stuff like we had said beforehand. So
Awesome, awesome. Well, Noah, thanks so much for joining us today. Your insights into scaling brands, leading teams, and navigating the chaos of e-commerce are gold for anyone trying to thrive in the space. So we really appreciate you being here. All right. So if you're watching and you want more conversations like this, don't forget that we drop new episodes every Wednesday. Hit the subscribe button, ring the bell so you're notified, and catch every insight-packed interview coming your way. And guys, if leading at this level, it's not easy, but you don't have to white knuckle it. Stick around because I've got something that's going to make it much easier for you.